Well, this is the last of the Lehigh 30 videos, and it's only fitting that it's called Partners, because Tom and I have been partners for every day, every week, every year of the 30 years. So we're going to take a little time and talk about each other. How we met. I was 17 when I first met Tom, which would have put him about 28, and he was the youngest superintendent that was running work for my dad's company. And I was the boss's son, and I had this boss's son mentality that I wanted to prove myself, and every other one of the guys that my dad had running work wanted no part of me being on their job. They would send me for coffee, they'd send me to pick up this, pick up that, and all I wanted to do was work. And when my dad finally put me with Tom worked my butt off, and I loved every minute of it, and I loved him for doing it. So I kind of we sort of had a special bond early on when I was still in high school. When we first started Lehigh, it was literally just the two of us. I was the office, and Tom was the field. As much as it's hard for probably people in the office here to understand now, from the clerical side to the estimating side to everything in between, it was me. As much as it's hard it is for the guys in the field to understand that Tom had a tool belt on and actually physically worked, it was just the two of us. But when we started, I was 24. I had no wife, no kids, no house, no mortgage. And I kind of had a bit of a cavalier attitude when we started that, you know, if we fall on our face, we fall on our face. But quickly it became very clear to me that my partner had a wife, had 3 kids, had a mortgage, and that from day one, I realized that failure really wasn't an option. And I was really worked hard myself those first couple of years, essentially just to keep food on Tom's table. And I do look back on it that way. Why we've been great partners. I think the key to it is neither one of us ever wanted the other's job, nor did we ever think we could do it better than the other one was doing it. And I think that's been just key to the partnership. In 30 years, we've never had anything that's even come close to a fight or a quarrel. I never ever recall having to go into Tom's office and say, I'm sorry I said that, or I'm sorry we fought, or we've just had tremendous respect for each other, and out of that has just been a pretty no quarrel-free relationship for a lot of years. I could say that we've been great partners because I've always been able to beat Tom in golf, but I can't even say that because although I was the one who introduced him to the game when his days of playing hockey and baseball and softball were over, he's quickly shot right by me, and now, as anyone who knows him, golf is his passion. What I've admired most about Tom as a partner, he ran work in the field, has overseen work in the field for 30 years, and I don't think he's ever once picked up a cost report. He's never looked at an estimate to figure out how much it costs, how much time it should take to get something done, how much it was costing. Everything he always did was through gut, experience, and essentially just doing what's right. And that was always the guide. It wasn't whether we were making money, losing money, it was just doing the right thing. I've had tremendous respect and admiration for him for that. The other thing was that invariably in the type of business we're in, you're going to have problems, you're going to have challenges. And Tom was never anybody that ran away from a problem. If it was just the opposite. I mean, if there was a forest fire, he wasn't running away from it, he was running headlong into it. And I'm not really built that way, I'm not made that way, and that's probably what's made us great partners as well, because something was going on wrong, he'd be the first guy there to try to fix it, to kind of take whatever he had to take from an owner or a client that wasn't happy about something and just work through it. We've always said around here that, you know, our relationships are built not when things are going well, but when things aren't going well. And Tom was instrumental in really, you know, rescuing us from some challenging situations on many, many occasions. If I could go back and change anything, I think when you have two partners, at times you've got kind of this perception of one's the good guy and one's the bad guy. And because Lehigh, over all these years, has always had probably 2 to 3 or more times as many field employees as office employees, Tom was probably thrust into situations where he was kind of the bad guy a heck of a lot more times than I was. But because, whether anybody knew it or not, we were talking all the time behind the scenes about these challenging situations, I'd like to think that, maybe Tom was never quite as bad, and nor was I ever quite as good as anybody ever perceived us to be. So if I could change anything, maybe the good guy, bad guy thing wasn't maybe quite the way people perceived it. But it's been a great 30 years, and I don't think I could have had a better partner during those years.
I first met Dave Knauss when I was working for his father, Earl, at a project at Union Carbide that now is called Praxair. The way things came about is Dave Hofer, who was in charge of almost everything with Earl, came out one day and said, "I've got a young fella I'd like it, to come and work with you for a while. It's Earl's son." And I said, "Well, that's interesting." And he said, "Well, one of the reasons I thought it would work is because you're younger and you might relate to him, and some of the older fellas weren't very comfortable with having a boss's son working with them." So, it worked out well. Dave and I, connected somewhat at that point, and we worked pretty hard, and we had to work hard. In fact, one day I had a call at home at night from Earl asking me what was I doing to David. And I responded, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, he comes home, he eats supper, and he goes to bed. He doesn't get up till the next morning. What are you doing to him?" I said, "No, I'm just making him work like I'm working really hard." He goes, "That's a good thing." One other story at the same time is Earl had mentioned me one day was he was driving home with Dave, and he would let Dave drive the truck on the way back, and we had been finishing concrete that day, and Dave found out about how to swirl finish concrete and was driving the car, took his hands off the wheel and started showing Earl how he was swirling concrete, and Earl thought they were going to go flying off the road, so he said, "Please don't do any more of that." When Dave and I first started, with the business, it was, pretty overwhelming. I don't think we either had an idea of how large a company would be or how small it would be, how many people would work for us, and whatnot. And the initial part of it was obvious that it was going to be, Tom was going to be in the field, the owner in the field, and Dave was going to be the office. And I think, that really helped us along. And the other part of it was really our core values, I think, and how we wanted to go forward and how we were going to be successful. And it really, at that point, got down to treating people like we wanted to be treated, and being honest, and hopefully get everybody home safe every day. I've often been asked why Dave and I seem to be great partners. And I, put thought in it and wondered, what is a great partner and compared to other people, and I really don't know. But, one thing I know for sure is the way we've, divided the business and the company of Dave being the office and myself being the field. One thing is I've never wanted Dave's job. I'm not sure if he's ever wanted mine, but I think that's part of the reason we get along for 30 years, and it's been great. I think you also need to be more than just partners. Just being partners seems very cold, and I think you need to be friends. And I think Dave and I, early on, pretty much established that we had a friendship. But then after that, I think you need to be more than friends. And I think we did that. Dave is referred to in my family by my children as Uncle Dave. Dave is also the godfather for my son, Jeffrey. So once again, I think that's more than even being friends. It really moves along. About 13 years ago, I was unfortunately had a stroke. And it wasn't very good, and I did fully recover from it. But while I was sitting in the intensive care unit thinking about my future and my family and everything else, you know, my thoughts, you know, turned to Dave, and I sort of penned him a little note and passed it on to my wife to give to him. I still don't really remember much of what I said, but it was more or less some thoughts on life and going forward, and how much, you know, family and life was, you know, so important. And I really felt I wanted to warn him to, you know, live life in addition to the business, you know, so he wouldn't end up where I was, you know, where I was sitting. I also blame the stroke on Dave because it happened while I was playing golf, and he's the one that, you know, forced me to take up golf because he thought it would be good for business. I'm just kidding. It's really never really happened, but I do appreciate him encouraging me to play golf. You know, part of it again about being more than friends goes back even many more years before that, when we first started business, where, you know, a wonderful lady that I had so much respect for approached me at one time and, you know, said, you know, you're more than Dave's partner, you're family. That was Nancy Knauss. That stuck with me, and I've always felt part of the Knauss family. You know, all the Knauss grandchildren of Earls and Nancy's refer to me as Uncle Tom. And I think that's great. I'm very, very honored. So, all parts, I'd like to thank Dave for letting me be his partner, for allowing me to be his friend, and letting me be part of the Knauss family. Thanks, Dave. What have I admired most about Dave Knauss? It's very simple. His honesty and his dedication to his wife and children. I guess if I could go back and change anything, I don't think I could. Several weeks ago I was thinking about how often I drive to jobs over the 30 years and how many trucks I've driven and everything else. And I did a kind of quick calculation, and I figured I've driven over 1 million miles. I wish I could do it again.